The 3 biggest mistakes people make in the hot yoga standing bow pose, or Bikram likes to say, standing bow pulling. Last week I did a video on the 3 biggest mistakes people make in standing hip to knee. Standing bow and standing hip to knee, if you've been watching my channel, you know are my 2 favorite poses, definitely the most iconic poses in the hot yoga world. Get rid of these mistakes and take your practice to the next level, I guarantee it. Once again, I'm wearing the same shirt, my new Alter Ego Rockstar shirt. I hope you like it.
You are no rock star.
Even if you're a beginner, watch all 3, because it's important to understand where the next step is, because you're not going to be beginner forever. You're going to continue to improve, so at least you have it in the back of your mind. First biggest mistake at the beginning level, and this is something that's different in the Bikram and the Barkan world, they tell you to keep your hips square to the floor. Big mistake. So like we did in last week's video, we're going to go back and forth to the yoga studio. Pashi, the owner of Prana Hot Yoga in Fort Lauderdale, is gracious enough to let us use her space. So with senior teacher Elena, let's go to the studio and demonstrate why we don't want the hips square. We want to turn the hip out. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Now in standing bow, one of the big problems people have is they try to keep their hips square the whole time. So Elena picks up her foot, and she's working on keeping her hips square to the floor. And what happens is now you can see her knee and her shoulder. If you were the mirror, she could see it in the mirror. We don't want the hips square. We got to turn the hip back so the shoulder and the knee go behind her head. So now Elena's going to start with her hips square. And what she's going to do, as soon as she starts to kick, that right hip is going to turn out a little bit. And as the hip turns out, now you can't see her shoulder and her knee. They're behind her body. So the hip turns out to get the foot straight out of the back of the head. Don't square your hips.
Before we continue, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, ring the notification bell. If you want to learn all about hot yoga, tutorials, factoids, flows, hit the subscribe button and the like button right now. And yeah, it would be almost impossible for you to get your leg all the way up, let alone straighten your leg if your hips are square. Take a look at this picture. Take a look at this picture. Take a look at my picture. The hip has to be turned out. No, not too much, because if you turn it out too much, then the foot's going to go over to the other side of your head. You know exactly the position of your hip when the foot comes out of the back of your head. So you've got to turn it out a little bit to release that back leg. Mistake number 2, and this is at the intermediate level, and I've said this many other times in my video, but repetition is important. You're kicking too high too soon. So if you've been watching my channel, you know the mantra. Here's the mantra. How high you kick initially depends on the flexibility of the hamstring of your standing leg. I'm not telling the advanced person not to kick too high. They have to in order to release that hip. But if your hamstring is tight and you kick too high too soon, you're going to be stuck up in the clouds. So let's go back to the studio in Fort Lauderdale with Elena and show you what I'm talking about.
Second big mistake people make, and I say this all the time on our videos, is to kick too high too soon. So Lena's going to kick, and now she's stuck up here in the clouds. Sometimes I would get students a Kleenex because they're going to get a nosebleed so high in that altitude.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Instead, what she's going to do is not kick so high at the beginning. She's going to kick up just a little bit so she can get her body down. Now when she's down, the hamstring stretching, and now she can kick up. So how high do you kick? Initially, depends on the flexibility of your standing leg hamstring.
Now, once again, this is important. I'm not saying don't kick too high if your hamstring is flexible. Now, at the advanced level, I'm going to show you a video of me when I was able to straighten my leg in the standing bow, and I'm going to commentate on the video so you can understand where my mind was at, what I was thinking about as I was doing the position. Because at the advanced level, if your hamstring's flexible enough, and you know from my videos, remember this picture, my hamstrings are pretty flexible.
Don't be such a show-off.
More so than my back bend, which is the other part of this position. So here's another equation for you. There's a back bend standing bow person, and there's a hamstring standing bow person. On occasion, somebody's prominent in both. For me, I was a hamstring standing bow person. A lot of people have that tremendous back bend, and that's how they were to get their leg up in the air. You really have to have both qualities. I mean, I had a pretty good back bend, but my hamstring was definitely my strength. So first, I'm going to introduce you to everybody. The first person you can see, the first man is Steven. He had a Bikram studio in Tequesta, Florida. He was one of the first people I certified. Then there's me. I'm not quite there yet. It's about halfway into the post. Then there's Cheryl to my right. Cheryl had a very successful Bikram studio in Boca Raton. Then there's Meryl. my most advanced student, and then there's Susan, my first student, who was with me for 39 years. It was pretty cool. So now I'm going to start the position, but I'm going to kick way up to release the back hip, and then I lower down. Now my hamstring can take it. That's why I can kick up. At this point, I realize my hip is not released, so I come up a little bit more to release the hip backward. Then I lower down into the position. I'm not there yet. Now I'm going to start kicking, feeling my body elastic. One more time, I'm going to lift up to release the back hip, and now lower down into the position. And now I'm going to feel my body extending and stretching and kicking. And there it is, pretty much straight, even though Steven's head's in the way. Boom. But I'm getting that body down and releasing that hip and kicking back as far as I possibly can. And mistake number 3, and I've said it many times before, you get down to the position and maybe you are able to get yourself down properly where your stomach's parallel to the floor. And then what happens is you just stay there. We do 2 sets for a reason. Think of the first set as awareness and alignment. You're going to go down to the position, maintain it. You're reaching forward, you're kicking backward, and you're staying there. Maybe you can start kicking up a little bit toward the end of the first set. Now we get to the second set. You don't want to just stay there. And this is what I see. I see people all over the world. I've had the privilege to travel around the world. Lately, I've been doing a lot of it on Zoom, so I'll see them on the Zoom. They get down into the position and they just stay there. They get stuck. They get stagnant. We have to extend our body. So let's go back to the studio in Fort Lauderdale with Elena and show you what I'm talking about.
And now the last mistake people make in standing bow is they don't kick up. They don't feel their body elastic. They come down into the position and they're stuck like an accordion and they just stay there. We got to extend our body. Reach that arm forward. Extend that leg back. Body comes down. She kicks. Extend. Your body is elastic. Don't stay stagnant. Extend yourself in this position. Standing bow.
Let's sum it up. At the beginning level, your hips are not squared. In fact, a lot of intermediates stay in that hip squared position and they're stuck. We've got to turn that hip out to release the back leg. Intermediate level, you're stagnant in the pose. You have to extend yourself. A lot of times I see the shoulders like this. We've got to extend the shoulders away from ourselves. We have to feel our body elastic. And mistake number 3, you're kicking too high too soon. If your hamstring's tight, you're going to be stuck up in the clouds. Like I said before, I used to hand people Kleenexes and say you're going to get a nosebleed and that high altitude. Get your body down. So how high you kick, I don't know. Everybody's different. You got to feel it out. That's where the practice comes in. How high you kick depends on that flexibility. Maybe some days you're more flexible than others. You definitely don't want to harm the hamstring. Now, and here's another thing to think about with this equation is that when you start to come down, you've got to feel your hamstring stretching. If you're not conscious of it, the hamstring is going to tighten up and it's going to take you off to the side. It's going to push you out of the way. Your head's going to turn to the side. Your body's going to turn out of position and go out of whack. So make sure when you're coming down, you have to think soft and loose to get that hamstring to stretch. So that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hit the notification bell. Any questions or comments or frustrations, I know this is a frustrating post, put them down below. I'm happy to get back to you and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone.